There we go. So morning, everybody. We have another in our series of our conversations around this paper that has been written on So What If ChatGPT Wrote It. Professor Yogesh Dwivedi from the School of Management at Swansea University has been arranging these series of talks with experts in the field. And so we're delighted this morning to welcome Yves Barlette, Professor Yves Barlette from Montpellier Business School. So Professor Barlette will give a short talk today before we go into a conversation. But just to introduce Professor Barlette, he's a full professor of information systems at Montpellier Business School, France. His research focuses on behavioral issues related to information security, and he teaches courses in cybersecurity, information systems, and digital transformation. He has 21 publications appearing in journals such as International Journal of Information Management, Journal of Organizational Change Management, Journal of Global Information Management, and Production Planning and Control. So some very well respected journals there. So if I hand over now to Professor Barlette to give a short talk before we have a discussion.
Okay, good morning. So I will tell you about ChatGPT in the context of education. So first, I will speak about the opportunities, then the limitations of ChatGPT, and then I will address the issue of the fraud by students and the fact that we use or not ChatGPT in education. So first, opportunities. ChatGPT seems great because it can summarize concepts or historical events. It can improve the writing of our students in terms of grammar, higher vocabulary, can add embellishments or transitions between paragraphs. And also, it can add quotes and facts to back up claims. But it's in orange because we will see this is also a limitation. We can also add constraints. For example, we want a summary, yes, but within 150 words, or specify specific scenarios. And for example, we can ask ChatGPT to write college admission essays or letters of motivations. Some people proved it's able to pass exams in law, medicine, economics, and Wharton, even get a Wharton MBA. So there are opportunities, but we see also dangers. College admission essays, it's not very ethical not to write by yourself this kind of essay. It can provide assistance and tutoring to students, and it will be a great danger for the education, because will ChatGPT replace all the professors? But it can also help us as teachers to create questions for assessments, quizzes, and develop lesson plans or even curricula. In terms of limitations or weaknesses, yes, it writes clearly, it's well structured, but as Malik says, it creates convincing sounding nonsense devoid of truth. Also, it's vague and flat and lacks heart and soul. For example, if you write an essay, this will not translate correctly your willingness to enter, for example, specific school. And also, same inquiries lead to similar results. For example, in the University of Lyon in France, a professor noticed that several students are given the same work. And after one said, yes, I use ChatGPT. And so it's quite easy when all students enter the same question from the professor, ChatGPT will answer similarly. ChatGPT 3.5, so the old one, we will say, I will develop this later, struggled with confusingly worded questions. ChatGPT 4 is much better in this area. Another important weakness is it works as a black box. So ChatGPT doesn't give any hint about its decision-making processes or how did it do what it did. And in summary, the final results remain inexplicable. And so, for example, if we want to use it as researchers, this black box aspect makes it very hard to use correctly. And also, ChatGPT has problems with sources and references. For example, if we ask ChatGPT to provide reference, we get these references, but the sources may not be correct. It can create from scratch a name, a title of article, or affect some authors, but this article never existed, and some of the authors never wrote similar articles. And so ChatGPT works as a black box and also has no understanding at all of ethics and attribution to someone. I will also elaborate later about this. And we can also say that our students using like this blindly ChatGPT, it won't build their writing or research skills, and it won't build critical thinking or problem-solving skills. So if our student fraud using ChatGPT, first, it's an original work, and so it's not plagiarism. This may create discrepancies between some students that will commit plagiarism, who will be detected, and those using AI to create text and who will remain undetected. And so plagiarism detection tools are obsolete, and plagiarism detection companies try to find tools to complement their plagiarism detection by AI detection systems. Some companies try to create some AI fraud detection tools, such as the Stanford University, Zero GPT and GPT-0. But first, and it's the problem, for example, at Montpellier Business School for 22-23, we didn't have any mention in our internal regulations. And so even if we detect any fraud, we cannot punish our students. And so for next year, we plan to integrate all forms of cheatings that we can identify and also provide example of situations with corresponding punishments. Some may be less important than other kind of frauds. And so this is yet to be created. And also it's very difficult to punish or even expel students if we had no legally valid detection solution yet, because there are still risks of false negatives and false positives. I've tested ChatGPT and it was totally wrong in terms of detection, GPT-0, for example. And so reliable solutions still need to be created. So should we prohibit ChatGPT? I read recently that nearly the half of secondary schools in a survey of more than 1,200 teachers, they prohibited ChatGPT. Some countries also prohibited ChatGPT. For example, it was the case in Italy, and Europe thinks about prohibiting ChatGPT. But if we examined the example of Italy. Just after the prohibition, there was a surge in the use of virtual private networks to circumvent the access to ChatGPT. And so for me, this prohibition is not a real solution. So in our classes, we can favor only handwritten work. Yes, our student will acquire more writing skills, or work on computers not connected to the internet, even through a smartphone, because they will find this easy way to circumvent the disconnection of computers. We can also write traditional essays and ask for oral interviews or oral defenses of theses, for example, to check if they really created everything in the text they use. But yes, this is time consuming for us. We can also, instead of prohibiting, relativize the use of ChatGPT by using, for example, alternative formats, podcasts, peer feedbacks, interviews, and so on. Or we can try to refine our essay questions to require more complex thoughts. And so ChatGPT may not be able to go so far. We can also try to draw on local information not available to ChatGPT, but maybe a long time it will be possible to ChatGPT to do that, or apply to a very specific and unique situation. Maybe more interesting to make connection between the life of students, their own life, and the knowledge which is necessary. And the last proposal, add a self-assessment step, so they should reflect and evaluate their own performance, and so ChatGPT cannot do that. Last possibility is to embrace and take advantage from ChatGPT. So we can ask ChatGPT to answer a question and ask students to rate this answer and comment on this answer. Or we ask ChatGPT to generate a text or a research and ask our students to compare with an original version and see the differences and maybe the weaknesses of ChatGPT. GPT can also help the students, because the white pages problem can be overcome by making information available to students and encourage them to conduct research, to work, and then after double check their facts. And it can be a source of ideas and inspiration. Maybe more interesting would be to encourage them to manage and to better know how they can work with machines. And so hybrid work could be very interesting for our students. And for example, how to guide ChatGPT, correct its mistakes, refine the requirements, and highlight specific points. I think it's named, the requirements can be named the prompts when you ask ChatGPT to do something, and so you can better specify your prompts. And ultimately teach our students how to work with AI, because it will be the case for their future. In the coming years, they will need to do that. And so we can teach them the appropriate uses of ChatGPTs and the ways to leverage ChatGPT for better outcomes. In conclusion, ChatGPT 3.5 was considered as a teenager in terms of understanding, in terms of responses, and GPT-4 will be considered as a multi-expert, so in multi-domains. You just have to pay $20 to do that. And so we can also expect GPT-5 in the next years, which will be much more powerful. And for me, it appears are uncontrovertible because it will be integrated within Windows, even Windows 10, 11 and 12, and also MS Office. And so I think we will have to do with ChatGPT. Impacts on society, we may rethink our education, maybe also our syllabi. We know that AI and automation threaten jobs. For example, advocates, for example, teachers, maybe not in the higher levels, maybe for now in the secondary schools, but maybe after in the universities. Also huge costs. That's why you will have to pay maybe more and more to access GPT, and also the environmental impacts. With Professor Dwivedi, we wrote an article about COP26 last year. And so, yes, ChatGPT, I think it costs $700,000 a day in terms of energy consumption. And so the questions are, how will we adapt to these disruptive changes? And we need to teach our students how to work with AI and chatbots, because our job is to prepare them for the future.
Thank you so much, Yves. Thank you. I mean, it's such a nice summary of almost everything. And one can say you love it or hate it, but you have to embrace it. There's not much option, basically. As you mentioned that even when country like Italy banned it, people find ways to use it, right? So it's not an option. I think you cannot avoid it. You can ban it, but people will find ways to use it. And also, the tools that are available to detect it is not that sophisticated enough. So basically, you know, people use it, and other institutions or any other bodies, they may not able to find out or identify it. So it's better to change the way we do things than saying that, oh, we want to use it or we don't want to use it. So let's, I mean, just to kind of take this talk a little further, I just want to know that what you think is current impact. Do you see any impact already having due to ChatGPT use, or you think that it's okay? I mean, at the moment, no problem.
At Montpellier Business School, I can see that some students try to fraud using ChatGPT. And I think for them, they don't want to speak about it because maybe it just helped them to work, as I said, to fight the white page problem. And for example, we received an email 2 days ago about our, before the defenses of our students' master thesis, to say we should check, for example, the references and to try to figure out if they exist or not just by Googling these references. But still, we are not ready. I think we are not ready to detect, and some students are not ready yet, because I was discussing with a colleague yesterday, and he told me about the usual, I would say, the old plagiarism. He called a student who had done exactly the same, even the interviews, because they have to conduct 10 interviews, all the 10 interviews were plagiarism. So
Okay, so already some kind of changes we are seeing.
Yeah.
Basically, it's just not so prominent yet, but I think in coming days we will see more and more.
Yes, I think it's maybe the beginning of a flood. We just see the water now, but it doesn't bother us yet.
Yes. And Tagwin,
yeah, I was going to say, I mean, it's very difficult for us to keep up with this, isn't it, really? You know, it's students are ahead to some extent of some of the lecturers, I think, in their use, because they're completely embracing it. We as educators don't necessarily have the time that we need really to dedicate ourselves to looking at this. So I guess I'm wondering, you know, how do we as educators keep up with this technology? You know, there's only so much we can do in terms of our time, our resources, and it's growing exponentially. You know, as soon as you kept up with one bit, then the next bit has evolved. But we as humans, we don't learn exponentially. So, you know, what are your thoughts on how we can manage ourselves, I guess, and the way that we keep up with and embrace as well, like you said, this technology?
Sorry, Yves.
Yeah.
May I request to just unshare the slide so we can come back to the normal discussion mode?
Oh, yes.
Yes. So, yes. Yeah.
Yes. So at Montpellier Business School, we have a team of teachers who are working on innovations in pedagogy. And so they are now reflecting a lot about this problem. I say problem, this opportunity, this potential opportunity. And so I think this team is about 6-10 people. And after they will teach our other colleagues how to embrace ChatGPT and give some advice of what to do and what not to do using ChatGPT or facing ChatGPT. So using for the professors and also for the students.
And if obviously research is part of our life, right? As an academic, we teach, but we also have to research and publish.
Yeah.
What you see as a researcher by yourself, that how this tool might help or harm us in terms of publishing?
In terms of publishing, it can help to perform a literature review, but only to discover a new topic we are not familiar with. For example, I'm a specialist of information security, and I should know everything about information security. So if I use ChatGPT, I think there is something wrong in that. But if I want to work on a new topic, yes, it can help me to discover this topic. And also, for some parts, maybe for the discussion, maybe we can try. This can give us some hints. But once again, ethically speaking, we must be very careful, because there will be a temptation to overuse ChatGPT and to go over the limits of ethics.
Yeah, and also some people already, so using is one thing, but abusing is not good. So yeah. Some people already trying to just kind of paraphrase other people's paper and trying to publish with their own name. So I've seen 2-3 cases. People said on social media that almost whole paper was just paraphrased. I guess the tools like ChatGPT will allow that to do so, right? Easy, in very easy way. You don't have to sit down and think and rewrite. It will rewrite for you, you know? So that's the like really worrying part of it. And also, as you said, that if you are expert, you should know about the area. And therefore, ChatGPT should be used as a tool somewhere, to do little here and there, but it's not be used to carry out your literature review fully. It would not. I mean, we have not tried ChatGPT 4, but ChatGPT 3.5 was not good enough. As you mentioned, the case is that it brings out the hypothetical references, right? So although it might present you correct themes or issues that is going on in particular area, but it will not able to give at the moment what are different studies that have talked about it. And if you force it, it will give you the references, but those references may not be the correct references, right? And I think the best way to identify if those references are correct or not, it normally give very new references when you force it. So always important to check the all new references, if they are correct or not. Old one might be correct, but the new one is the made up one, basically. So I think that the publishing would be highly impacted by ChatGPT. Those who are, responsible, those who thinks about things, they will not use it in this way. Publishers are also very clear what you can do and what you can't do. But as we talk about the student, there are people in academia who will use it in the way it should not be used. And that's the challenge, basically. And challenges for the editors, challenges for the reviewers, challenges for the, more wider ecosystem, basically, how to manage this impact of this change. So, yeah. Tagwin, anything further?
Yeah, oh my God, lots of thoughts, I guess, are coming. And I think it's just such an interesting topic that we're having to face, especially in education at the moment, because we are seeing it, like Yves was talking about, some of those issues and that you're talking about as well. And I guess it's, how do we foster in our students critical thinking? You and we as experts are better able, because of our experience, to validate those responses that ChatGPT gives us, but students aren't. So how are we able to embrace this technology and teach our students and foster that critical thinking that we want them to have, and that human interaction in the learning process? How can we go about that? Because you mentioned about in your slides, Yves, the different, which was really interesting, the different ideas around assessment that we're going to be forced to really potentially think about. But what about in the classroom, in the learning process? How can we kind of, I guess, get the message across, have that human interaction, have that critical thinking from our students, whilst at the same time using a tool such as ChatGPT?
Yes, I think students maybe will learn by doing. So if we show them the limits of AI and ChatGPT in particular, that's what I said. You show a text generated by ChatGPT, you compare with the original text, and like this, they will see that ChatGPT is not a god. It cannot do perfect things. And also, by knowing the limitations of AIs, the interaction with other humans seems to be the most important thing. In information systems, I teach knowledge sharing, and that's very important.
And I guess then just to follow up as well, you mentioned in your talk about the integration of ChatGPT into Microsoft packages such as Outlook, PowerPoint, Word, and all the rest of that's being discussed. I mean, I guess I'm curious to think, I'm wondering really, what will that look like for us and for students? Because yes, we think we can see that that's probably on the horizon now. What will that look like? Because that's going to be an even bigger disruptor, because we've got no choice but to use it if it's integrated really into those packages. It'll become everyday use, won't it?
I think, for example, I imagine that I write something using Word, and ChatGPT can help me to improve maybe my language, I speak maybe more about students who have problems with grammar, orthograph, and so on. Also, I'm French, and so when I translate into English something, my English sometimes is not very good, and so using ChatGPT to improve my language seems to be an ethical way and a very handy thing to use. And so integrating this with Word, I don't think it's a problem. After, maybe in terms of integration with Windows in general, to search things, I think we will get more relevant answers. It's not like Siri or some other old AIs that were not relevant at all and sometimes gave very foolish answers. And so I think here we will have a real progress.
Just to follow up with this, Yves, have you tried Bing? Because they said they already integrated ChatGPT with Bing, the search engine from Microsoft.
No. I didn't use it.
Okay, you have not used it.
No.
But apparently they have already integrated. I have not used it either.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see how differently they are performing. And what about ChatGPT-4? Have you tried it yet?
No. For me, there are still problems with privacy, because many specialists says that ChatGPT memorize what you ask and it can be accessed by other people. And so for now, I'm a little afraid of asking things to ChatGPT. For example, I tested it and maybe also a thing we should teach our students is to be very cautious about ChatGPT in that sense.
Yeah, so asking and more even dangerous than asking questions. So asking question might be okay, but presenting your information, sometimes you paste information to get something, So whatever you are inputting in the ChatGPT, it is important that those things should not be sensitive, should not be something that you don't want to disclose to others.
Exactly.
If you do that, then obviously it would be available, the model will learn through that, and then that same information will be available for everyone else. So what you don't want to share is a simple things. In real life, what you don't want to be disclosed, you don't share it with anyone else. It's the same with the ChatGPT. What we don't want to go to someone else, we should not input into ChatGPT, So yeah, I have not tried either, and it will be interesting to see how the ChatGPT is different from ChatGPT 3. Tagwin, have you tried it?
I've tried a little bit of not ChatGPT 4, but I have tried Bing and Bard, and I prefer ChatGPT 3.5, to be honest. I like the way it flows. I like its answers. I like its responses. It feels, yes, it is more human-like, and it just feels more, you can connect to it more and talk to it as though you're talking to somebody else. Whereas these
agree.
Yeah.
I agree. I have similar feeling. I tried Bard, but Bard is like, still you can see lots of problem in their responses. So, but ChatGPT 4 most of the time provide better responses, actually, I would say. More human-like, as you said, more human-like. So yeah, it's interesting developments. And Yves, thank you so much for first thing for contributing to the article. Obviously, you have outlined all these things in the article itself, and also to making this time today to talk to us about it. I guess it's a a development that would have implications for many, many people. And our role is very little here, just to create some awareness, some information for others to remove their anxiety, I believe. Yeah. So thank you so much.
Maybe just one thing. When we use ChatGPT, we have to give our email and our phone number. This is significant.
Yes, that's right. So thank you so much for joining us today. And hopefully we continue to discuss this aspect in next few years. So
with pleasure.
Thank you so much, Yves, and thank you, Tagwin.
Thank you, Yves.